A leader who has a healthy relationship with authenticity would understand that he or she may not know and will not know everything.
Welcome, everyone, to the Being Framework Leadership Foundation series. I am Enrique Acosta Gonzalez, and I am joined with Ashkan Tashver as we begin episode 9, Authenticity. Now, in the previous episodes, we covered contextualizing moods in leadership, recreating distinctions and the role they play, care, anxiety, fear, vulnerability. And what does this all mean in the context of leadership? And in this episode, we will be covering confusion, vulnerability, and anxiety associated with not knowing, the limitations to our sensations, perceptual structure, and rationality, recreation of the exposure triangle. What are we referring to by the word authenticity? Meanings versus words. The authenticity quadrant, self image, persona, opinion, beliefs, and authenticity in the context of leadership. Ashkan, we have covered a lot of information in the last 8 episodes, and I'm excited about diving into this particular one because it was one that I had to face head on when I started in this journey. And authenticity plays such a big role in leadership.
Yes, yes, that's correct. So, hello, Enrique, and hello, everyone. I'm quite excited being here. Like, authenticity conversation is always a very big one. Like, we can spend perhaps many episodes talking about it. I'm pretty sure as we go, it's going to come up. But this is a dedicated session to authenticity. So, let's create a context before we talk about authenticity. We live in confusion, meaning that um, we don't know stuff. We don't know a lot of things that we need so that we can live a graceful life, prosperous life. When we come to this word, we come in with vulnerabilities, with various different vulnerabilities. We are vulnerable to diseases, viruses, bacteria, certain bacteria. We're vulnerable in a sense that we cannot move. We need to be fed. We don't know really much what is going on. And later on, as we go, we're vulnerable to our unfair boss at work. We're vulnerable to our angry neighbor, cheating partner. We're even vulnerable to our own temptations and impulses, and limitations to our perceptual structure and our thought and thinking. So it is therefore quite normal for us to be uh, anxious, vulnerable, fearful at times. And these are some of the things we've covered in the previous episode when we were talking about moods. Yeah, that's why these primal moods or modes of a state of mind are quite real. In a sense, they're axiomatic, meaning that like they're self-evident that they are there. Now, whether they should be there or not, that's not a conversation for us. We talk about the isness of how things are, what and how things are here. We are tapping into ontology and phenomenology as two branches of philosophy. Now, because we're vulnerable, um, um, and because one of perhaps our greatest vulnerabilities of all is the limitations to our sensations or sensory abilities, our perceptual structure, as well as our conceptual structure or rationality, the way that we think. Then I think it's quite important for us to be present to that, and that present being present to these limitations is going to basically lead us towards taking authenticity more seriously. Now, soon we'll talk about that. Yeah, the talk about authenticity. So let's stay with that those limitations. So when I said limitations to our sensations or senses, um, sensory abilities, is like our nose is not going to really be as perfect as a dog nose. Yeah, we're not going to sense all smells from far distances. The same thing goes with our ears. We're going to only hear frequencies between certain um, frequencies. Yeah, so we're not going to hear whatever is there. Yeah, and the same thing goes with our eyes. We're not going to see all there is. Yeah. Now, when it comes to our perceptual structure, is then we what in part unconsciously the way that our brain is going to perceive things. See, for example, you may hear this massive sound, and you cannot fully tell uh, to perceive it. You know, you don't know if you're perceiving as a gunshot or doors clapping or doors shutting, um, and and that's a kind of a limitation to our perceptual structure. Then beyond that, there is limitations to our conceptual structure. Basically, by conception, I mean when we tap into mental processes such as comparison, analysis, reflection, contemplation, and so on. Yeah. So when we tap into our own rationality, also we cannot be fully sure that our rationality is going to not be flawed, and it's going to always work in our favor. Because at times we see certain renowned thinkers out there in the contemporary history, they constantly talk about the importance of rationality, and if we become rational and then everything is going to be all right. Well, rationality that led to advancement of science and technology definitely brought lots of things that are we're benefiting from. It worked in our favor. It increased our lifespan. We managed to uh, build airplanes and means of travel. We've basically rationality helped us so much. At the same time, it is our rationality um, that gave birth to things like mass slaughtering weaponry, nuclear weapons. It gave birth to addictive substances. So the rationality is not always going to work in our favor as well. Now, even if like you as an individual, if you go back and in retrospect looking to the decisions that you have made in your life at the time, you just thought that this decision is so rational. It was rational to you at the time. And then the time passes, and then you look into it in retrospect, and then you realize that, oh, how could I make that kind of a decision in my life? So, what seemed rational at certain time in our life, later on we may not relate to it as rational anymore, or and we can say that our rationality not always work in our favor. Yeah. So therefore, the reason I'm talking about these is not to say rationality is not important, science is not important. We're not talking about that. We're saying there are limitations to our senses, perceptual structure, and conceptual structure or rationality. And this is a big part of the vulnerability that we have. Now, having said all of that, yet life demands us, sometimes quite harshly, to know stuff, to have authentic awareness of various fragments of reality. That's exactly the whole idea behind the traditional education. Basically, education was there for us to develop, gradually develop the congruent and authentic conceptions of various different fragments of reality. That's exactly why perhaps a baby orangutan would spend close to 6, 7 years with the parent, with the mother, uh, and the mother is going to be teaching the baby orangutan uh, um, in a way that the baby orangutan is going to develop congruent, authentic conceptions of these different parts of uh, the word that he or she needs them. For example, which leaves are poisonous or which leaves are eatable, how to climb trees, in what is the notion of gravity, how gravity can works against you if you fall from a tall tree or something like that, and what you may be what you may need to do when it's rainy, when it's a storm, and so on. So the survival of and or growth of even the orangutan is highly tied to her conception of various different parts of reality that she needs to be engaging with. Now, when it comes to human being, obviously, with the layers and layers of reality that we have created, um, um, it's extremely important for us to understand and develop congruent conceptions, authentic conceptions. Let's say, for example, if you want to become a wealthy person or prosperous financially, then it's extremely important for you to understand and develop this congruent, authentic conception of what money is and how money works. Yeah. Now, because if you want to be effective, if you want to increase the probability of the fulfillment of your intentions, the intentions you care most about, obviously, valid understanding of what things are and how things work are extremely important. Yeah. Enrique, how does this land? Because we haven't started talking about authenticity directly, but I'm basically creating the context at the moment. Yeah. Soon we'll talk about authenticity. But how does this land? Like how do you see the context?
No, it's important to realize that as you use the reference of an orangutan, right? Just the parent child relationship. As you was going through that, I'm thinking through my mind the many
Mm,
things that I've taught my children in preparation for reality, because we have a sense of reality at home. But then once you go out the confines of our four walls, there's a different reality. And so as you develop this awareness, this authentic relationship with what the reality is on both aspects, it makes it for a stronger and more resilient and more vibrant child that can last the ages past you, right? So, no, it's perfectly in line with what we're about to talk about.
sure. Yeah. So now, as we mentioned from the beginning of this series, we're not going to go through every single aspect of being of the 31 qualities that are discussed in the being discourse or being framework. But authenticity plays a very, very major role. Um, if you remember, at some point we were talking about the exposure triangle. And in the exposure triangle, we talked about like how we as human beings constantly take snapshots of different parts of reality so that we can make sense of the world, and live our lives. Yeah, so we talked about exposure triangle. We said that our relationship with awareness itself is like how much light is being let into the lens. Like here, light being the knowledge, yeah, metaphorically. And then we talked about our relationship with vulnerability. Then, and in the previous episodes, we talked about all moods, including vulnerability. So vulnerability, we discussed it um, as being open. not being guarded. And metaphorically, in the exposure triangle, we say, how long will the shutter be open? This determines how much light is let into the sensor. So that also we talked about that. And then the last one, the last part, is authenticity. Yeah. Now, when we talk about authenticity, is how we talk about how sensitive is the sensor to the light. Now, like as we work with more and more people, we realize that this is basically these are the three qualities amongst all 31 qualities that basically play a very, very major role in how we relate to different fragments of reality. Oh, we talked about awareness, we talked about vulnerability, and um, I thought that maybe it's a good idea to dive a little bit deeper into authenticity. Now, so when it comes to authenticity in a conventional sense, yeah. So let me ask you, indicate, in a conventional way, when we talk about the word authenticity, what does it land? Like how most people would receive it?
Yeah, they more than likely will look at authenticity as something being a quality of truthness, right? Something
Fruitness. Yeah.
that you are true to. When
Yeah.
you become inauthentic, lies have crept in, and now you've become something that you're not. And I think for
Yeah.
the most part, that's usually the concept of authenticity at large.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So yeah. So often when we talk about authenticity, as Enrique said, like people may receive it as being genuine, being original, being yourself, yeah, being truthful. Now, obviously, these are quite important, and these are manifestation of what I mean. What I refer to using the word authenticity. Yeah, but let's pause a little bit here and look into this difference between words versus meanings. Yeah, so often we give primacy to the words. For example, we say there's this word, and this is the definition for this word. This is the meaning of this word. We say responsibility, and then we say responsibility means this. Yeah. Now, there is an alternative way to go about it, which is when we look into the our experience of life, we look into phenomena, when we look into the nature, when we look into any layer of reality, and and we see something. We are present to the existence of something. For example, we see a dog, we see a kangaroo, and so that kangaroo or the dog is real in the nature, and we invent a word, and we use the word to encapsulate the complexity of us referring to that very part of the nature, let's say the dog or the kangaroo. Yeah. So therefore, the primacy in this case is not going to the word, but it's going to the actual meaning, meaning being a fraction of truth, a fraction of reality. Yeah. So therefore, we find something in the nature, and then we invent a name or a word, and then we associate it with it to um, minimize the complexities of communication. Yeah. Now, when it comes to abstract ideas, m- like for example, a commitment. Yeah. So you cannot touch commitment. You cannot. Um, Commitment is not something out there in the nature as such. Now, still, we are making ourselves present to a meaning, a fraction of that metaphysical truth. Yeah, commitment is a thing. Yeah, and then we come up with a word, say commitment, to refer to it again to encapsulate the complexities, some good part of the complexities of communication. Now, here we're giving the axiom or we're giving the primacy to the actual phenomena or the meaning, in this case being commitment. Yeah, when a promise is being made and a promise is being made, and then you fulfill that promise. Let's say we keep it to that. Then we create a word for it and then we refer to it. Now, if you look into my book, Being, particularly the book Being, you can't see that I say the meaning of this word is this. I often say the meaning that this word refers to. So this is my attempt to give primacy to the meaning rather than the word. Yeah, like us having multiple different languages in the world, quite many different languages, and each language would have their dedicated word for commitment testifies what basically I'm saying, that the actual primacy perhaps should go to the meaning, not a word. Yeah. Now, why this matters? Because often we use words, um, and we think that we are in agreement with each other when we're talking about that word, and that's exactly why we have words. As we said, we want to encapsulate the complexities of communication. But does it really fully work? See, for example, when I say um, spirit, yeah, so spirit in English refers to like a kind of mm, alcoholic drink. At the same time, it refers to a completely different thing, which is like soul or spirit of human beings. So, or there are other words that we have that they serve in a similar manner. Yeah, we don't know why we're using the one word to refer to so many different meanings. Yeah. Now, when we talk about, even like when we talk about things like commitment or responsibility, that we may assume that, okay, so this traditional speaking, this word has been used to refer to one meaning, let's say. But again, is our understanding of that meaning or that word the same? In another word, do we all, like for example, me and Enrique here, will we both um, have the same picture, mental image of commitment or responsibility, or in this case, authenticity or not? Well, that's not the case. It's that, and that's exactly why lots of conflict arises right from the beginning in communications. Yeah. So this is exactly why we created the distinctions in the being framework ontological model. So whenever we're saying we're using any of these keywords, things like assertiveness, things like compassion, things like responsibility, authenticity, anxiety, and so on, we are not defining them as we discussed in previous episodes, but we distinct them. We say that this is a distinction. This is what we mean. It's a kind of agreement. Now, so when it comes to authenticity, as we said, often authenticity is only being seen as being truthful to yourself and others, being original, genuine, and these are manifestation of what I mean by authenticity, but authenticity goes beyond that. The meaning, the phenomena that I'm trying to refer to, I refer to using the word authenticity goes beyond. So yeah, authenticity is how you relate to the reality of matters in life. It is the extent to which you are accurate and rigorous in perceiving what is real and what is not. It is also how sensitive and diligent you are to the validity of the knowledge you perceive. Authenticity is paramount for you to carefully consider that your conception of reality, including your beliefs and opinions, is congruent with how things are. When you are being authentic, you are compelled to express your unique being, what is there for you to express, while being consistent with who you say you are for others and who you say you are for yourself. It is the congruence or alignment of your self image, who you know yourself to be, and your persona, who you choose to project to others. Now, and then we talk about the healthy relationship and unhealthy relationship with authenticity. A healthy relationship with authenticity indicates that you take the time to thoughtfully consider your beliefs and opinions as the validity and accuracy of your conception of matters is important to you. You mostly experience yourself as being true to yourself and others. Others may consider you genuine, distinct, and trustworthy, and that your actions are consistent with who and how you are and what you communicate. An unhealthy relationship with authenticity indicates that there may be no solid foundation for your beliefs and opinions and how you choose to examine reality, and you are often lenient and fickle with how you express your views and the truth. You may consider yourself to be fake or an imposter and often question your own abilities. Others may consider you to be someone who lacks sincerity and often acts inconsistently with who you say you are. You are frequently uncomfortable with being yourself and being with yourself. Alternatively, you may be righteous, opinionated, biased, or prejudiced, considering your truth to be the only truth and may be unwilling to give up being right. So, this is the distinction that we are referring to when we use the word authenticity. Yeah. So, in a nutshell, authenticity is how you relate to reality, how lenient or fickle you are, or how rigorous and critical thinker you are. Are you there to just accept whatever that is being given to you? You just adopt perceptions, you let yourself being coerced and influenced, um, and just pick whatever opinions or beliefs, or you're rigorous and you give them give it quite good amount of attention, try to understand something, try to get to the bottom of things and shape congruent understanding of various parts of reality. You know, so Enrique, like when we read the distinction, what are the parts that are bolder to you? It just comes to your mind.
Yeah, right off the bat is just thoughtfully considering your beliefs and
Yeah,
opinions. That takes a lot of concentration in you and what you're thinking in order
yeah,
to get to that point. Not too many people get there, if at all, in their lifetime. But it is the fact that you can do that
yeah,
and also understand, as it says, the validity and accuracy of your conception of matters is important to you.
yeah.
It's something that is just not a thought of, but you feel it. You understand that this is where you need to be.
So yeah, now so we have this thing um called authenticity quadrant because like there are certain keywords came up as we were talking about authenticity so far: self-image, persona, beliefs, opinions. So I would like to walk you through now what the construct that I have it in the book being, which I call authenticity quadrant. Now, this is going to make understanding of our understanding of authenticity with the distinction that I've presented you way more easy, I would say. So we have self-image, you know, as part of our authenticity or relationship with authenticity. Now, self image is the conversations you have with yourself about yourself. We all have conversations with ourselves about ourselves, and that's the self image. Now, to what extent that is going to be accurate or not, that's a different conversation. That has to do with your relationship with authenticity. Yeah. Are you having these conversations with yourself about yourself that are accurate and congruent or not? Now, this happens to be sometimes we have exaggerated self image, and sometimes we actually downplay and we may reduce ourselves uh, from the person we actually are. Yeah, and it can manifest itself in both ways. Now, then it comes to persona, you know, conversation you have with the world or the others about yourself. So this is basically what we project out there. Um, this is how we want to be seen. Now, whether our persona is aligned and not necessarily identical, but aligned and congruent with our self-image, that's another conversation. Yeah. So basically, there is this part that you may have some gap when it comes to conversations you have with yourself about yourself, the self image. Yeah. The self image can have a gap with how actually you are. And also, then there can be another gap when you have this self image, but then you may exaggerate it and project this exaggerated persona, or on the other side you may project this persona which is too humble, overly humble, or you downplay. Yeah. So self-image, conversations you have with yourself about yourself; persona, conversations you have with the world about yourself. And then it comes to the conversations that you have with yourself about the world. Those are your beliefs. um, the conversations that you have um, with yourself about the world, about how things are out in the world, how things work. Mm, what are your conceptions or perceptions of money, government, um, your spouse, your partner, this particular product that you consume, etc., etc. So you have beliefs, and again, like those beliefs can be accurate, authentic, congruent, uh, and effective, or not. Yeah. Now, then it comes. The last one is the conversations we have with the word about the word. Now, so these are our opinions. Yeah. Now, so if we basically zoom out and then see authenticity, when it comes to authenticity and using this authenticity quadrant, we have conversations with ourselves, we have conversations with others or with the world. Yeah. Um, and when we have these conversations can be about the world or about ourselves. So this quadrant actually helps us to dive deeper and then see if we have inauthenticities or incongruent understanding of ourselves, of the world. We can basically go there and then identify those shadow parts, the troubled side, the inauthenticities. And the moment that we identify them, then we can start addressing them. Yeah. So if there are misconceptions that we have, if there are certain things that we do have genuine lack of awareness, then we can go and then we can address them. So this is the part that in the book we're talking about, um, authenticity quadrant.
The more harmonious your understanding of your self image, the more balanced and humble, yet confident, your persona will be. Furthermore, if the conversations you have with the world or others, the right hand side of the quadrant, are overly positive, you risk ending up being idealistic, delusional, and unrealistic, often expressing romantic, dreamy opinions. Too negative, and you are likely to end up being cynical, skeptical, and pessimistic, expressing sarcastic, cutting, and acerbic opinions. The more balanced and authentic you can be with both positive and negative beliefs and opinions, the more realistic and decisive you will be. And the more congruent and accurate your beliefs and opinions will be. This links with awareness and establishes a healthy relationship with reality, first and second layer.
Yeah, thank you very much, Enrique. Yeah, see, yeah, another word that we can associate with authenticity is being realistic. Yeah, see, if I say marriage, yeah, And then a person may immediately may go, oh, marriage, yeah. So the things that they come to their mind would be things like um, warmth, family, children, love, happily ever after, yeah. And to another person, I say marriage, and what immediately comes to their mind is argument, violence, I don't know, divorce, and these type of things. Now, these overly pessimistic, overly optimistic views are sentimental. Yeah, so sentimentalism is like you're not being authentic and realistic. Yeah, while the reality would be like it can be either, or it has a little bit of both, and it's up to you how you're going to manage that. But being able to see how things are or can be, it's extremely important. Yeah, and not being sentimental, but being authentic. Now, why does this important to you, Enrique, when it comes to the context of leadership? Why it's important? You think?
Well, when you think about leadership, similarly to what you would equate like a marriage,
Mm,
how you see leadership, whether optimistic or pessimistic, could really send you in two directions. One leader, overly optimistic, we're hey, everything's gonna work out. Don't worry, we'll get all this fixed. And you may not even have the resources for for what you're speaking. Another one
mm,
is everything's gonna fail. Having a complement of people that can actually
mm,
solve the issues, right? And so you can cut yourself on both ends in terms of leadership when you
mm.
go to both those sides and not find a real good balance, a healthy balance in reality.
Yeah, yeah. So definitely, see this authentic authenticity or authentic awareness is extremely important, as you mentioned, Enrique. As a leader, you're already dealing with tremendous amount of uncertainties, dilemmas, like on a minutely basis. Like you need to make decisions, yeah, and not always you have access to verified um, information, knowledge, so that you can make your decisions based on. That's exactly why we have a separate word for it. Like we don't make decisions based off data purely or knowledge. We make our decisions based on intelligence. Why we say intelligence? Because intelligence is like an aggregation of certain verified information and certain other information that are not verified or cannot even be verified. And we're just making the best guesses. Yeah. So from the aggregation of the verified and unverified part, and then we're going to have this intelligence that we can make decisions on. Now, letting alone that on top of that, then there's your emotions and feelings and intuition and value system that they contribute into this decision making. So to say that you only make decisions or you have data driven decision making in a radical sense, that's not realistic on itself. But as a leader, you are already dealing with tremendous amount of uncertainties, dilemmas, doubts, and yet you need to make decisions. And your decision is going to impact so many other people. Yeah. And someone needs to make that decision at the end of the day. So, having a healthy relationship with authenticity is extremely important because it can decrease the amount of probabilities of failure or ineffectiveness and increase the probabilities of you hitting your objective. Yeah, you're going to be this visionary person. You want to see the things as they're coming, and I mean, you need to make the decision. So your best chance is like to have a healthy relationship with awareness. Now, if you have a healthy, relatively healthy relationship with awareness, how does that manifest in your basically behavior at the end of the day? I would like to encourage us to look into this excerpt from my unpublished book that soon will be published in the next couple of months. Enrique, would you please read us The Invisible?
The invisible. The world's highest achievers deeply acknowledge that they don't know everything. They recognize and believe in the invisible. Rather than acting as if they know it all, they consistently tap into the knowledge and resources of others, read books and academic papers, seek guidance from coaches and advisors, and enlist the expertise of professionals in various fields. This approach involves hiring individuals who excel in diverse areas to lead and contribute to advancing their mission or interest, aligning with what matters most to them. Consider that if you lead an organization, you have authority over many experts in their fields who likely possess far more in depth knowledge and experience than you in certain areas. If you fail to acknowledge this, both in theory and action, you and therefore also the organization will be in trouble. Belief in the invisible means acknowledging and surrendering to the fact that we don't know everything. It leads us to collaborate, bring complementary people together, organize ourselves in teams, consider other perspectives, and adopt a pluralistic approach. History has shown us the high cost of ignoring this reality. Believing in the invisible releases us from confusion and serves as the foundation for our discoveries and growth. It recognizes that we do not see or know all there is to see or know with accuracy. And yet, even when we do know, we sometimes rebel against our own knowing despite accepting it as the truth, authentic or right. Acknowledging our ignorance and belief in the invisible gave rise to modern science. That's when we discovered how lenient we have been in accepting unverified and untested descriptions of the material world for so long. This leniency led to our profound respect for science and the scientific way of thinking. So, the modern scientist revolution did not begin with the discovery of new pieces of knowledge. It was sparked first and foremost by the realization and acknowledgement of our ignorance and double ignorance.
Thank you very much, Enrique. Yeah, so as you could see, as Enrique was helping us reading through that, as a leader, you as your organization is going to grow, you're going to be dealing with different people in different fields. Like whether you employ them, you have that kind of a structure, or you are a small team and you're going to build relationships, partnerships, and working with other teams in different areas so that you can leverage their contribution and then grow. So as you go, you're going to have authority, whether as a client, you have certain type of authority, or as a leader who is like basically working with the people you employ in your organization, then you're going to have authority over growing number of people in different fields that perhaps you know very little or even none about. And a leader who has a healthy relationship with authenticity would understand that he or she may not know and will not know everything. And that very acknowledgement in action will result in taking views from multiple different people around them because they have that humble persona and realistic persona that they know that there is limitations to their sensations and perceptual structure and conceptual structure and experience and exposure to different fields. So therefore, they hire the the best experts possible to work with them. They work with coaches, they work with mentors, they shape advisory boards. Basically, they don't let themselves to be left alone on their own devices because they know how that can cost time, money, and et cetera, et cetera. So this collaboration. the collaboration, bringing complementary people together, creating surplus values that it translates itself in profit, what many organizations, of course, would like to see more of. It comes from taking this authentic approach. Yeah, if it makes sense. Now, so I hope that by now we have made it clear why this authentic awareness or authenticity in our awareness and our action is extremely important. Yeah. And like if you look into the highest achievers, as we said, they you can clearly see how their relatively healthy relationship with authenticity leads them to be highly effective and grow businesses and increase the probability of them hitting their targets and fulfilling the intentions they set. So now, but another question now that comes, if you are now considering that, okay, fantastic, like I need to be authentic, then the question may come like, okay, how to be more authentic? Is it like, are we encouraging us to like fully tap into scientific facts here and there? Well, that can be one part of it, but what we're discussing here from an aspect of being perspective is not necessarily being authentic about X or Y. It's not being having authentic awareness of this thing or that thing. It's how you relate to authenticity. Meaning that if you are about to take a belief, adopt an opinion, if if you are presenting yourself, you're introducing yourself, and in those moments, is it a concern for you to be congruent, to be authentic, or not? This is the thing that we're talking about, and how you relate to it then later is going to support you to seek ways. Yeah, through it can be like critical thinking, it can be looking into the academic literature of something when you're going to make decisions, scientific evidences, and in certain areas that it doesn't sit in the realm of science and uh, academic studies, quantitative studies, then you want to learn from mentors, you want to learn from the people in the field, you want to still consider certain qualitative studies and the insight that you can gain before you jump into making a decision and then taking an action. So it is your relationship, how you relate to um, authenticity, is your conception of authenticity itself that matters, that we're discussing here from an ontological and phenomenological perspective, not being authentic around this thing or that thing. That would be the potential result of you having a healthier, relatively healthier relationship with authenticity, if it makes sense. If you have that, then very likely, due to that concern, then you will be a critical thinker. You will not be lenient and fickle with your views, with your opinions and beliefs, and very likely you're going to be more congruent when it comes to who you say you are for yourself and who you say you are for others. So, Enrique, how does this whole thing land to you? Uh,
Yeah,
Contextualizing like authenticity in leadership. Would you like to add anything?
yeah, this is a very important topic when you're talking about leadership. So you can think about, and for those that are leaders, think about your actions as being authentic, or you can think about what authenticity really means and how are you being with what that meaning is. And it's two different things because you can actually be portraying in action to be authentic, fully unauthentic. You can actually do that. It happens all the time. So, in the leadership perspective, it's more important for you to understand how you are being with, meaning your relationship with what authenticity is, and how congruent, as you just said, you are with that prior to trying to be, and
Mm,
which is what most people do. They try to just show
yeah,
and really end up living a lie, right? A lie.
yeah,
They're not
mm,
really authentic in that being. So, uh,
yeah.
great topic for leaders to really understand and get a hold of prior to, and if not, right now, right? Just right now. Uh,
Yeah.
doing that will help out leaders tremendously.
So, and one last thing, Enrique, I would like to bring up is, see, we often, because there is this conventional way that we often relate to authenticity, and then that can be a little bit misleading because what we discuss here as authenticity is broader, as you can see. So, and often I was told, like from the get go, why don't you use the word congruent? Well, we use the word congruent as we've used it many times. But then, see, when it comes to, um, like if you're going to shape conceptions of parts of material reality, nature, for example, what an apple is, or for example, this is a dog and that is a cat, and then there is clear whatness about them, like we can study them in great part scientifically, yeah. Or for example, like we want to look into like our anatomy or physiology, and we can tap into exact science and try to shape congruent conceptions of those parts of reality. Now, at times, then it's a little bit more complicated because then it comes to more abstract ideas or construct that we've created. Now, it's still doable, still feasible, but it's not like we are not really tapping into something tangible out there in the world, like a cat or a dog. Like, for example, when we look into the notion of money, yeah, notes, dollar notes, for example, money, fiat currencies, and so when it comes to those, then it's something man-made, something that we've created, some construct, and then we have faith in, and we collectively decided to agree that this piece of um, paper worth $100, let's say. So now, trying to understand that, and that's something that because it's a construct, it's negotiable and it can change during the time, as it did. If you look into the history, yeah, money was not referred to something that we today call money, which is like this token or this paper, but it had to have that kind of intrinsic values, things like gold and silver. And then now we're going to the next era that like some of these digital currencies are coming up and they're challenging given the way that typical notion of dollar is has been seen during the contemporary history, yeah. Now there are times that it goes even more perhaps complicated, like when we talk about things like human rights or even the notion of democracy. So these are ideas that we tap into, and it's really hard to, for example, study democracy scientifically. The whatness and howness of democracy or human right. And that's exactly why we enter this realm of yes, we definitely can look into it phenomenologically as a human experiences. We can definitely gain insight through social sciences, as they call them, or I would rather to say qualitative studies. We can discuss them, we can debate, we can go through social discourse, and we can see it from multiple different perspectives and aspects. But to say that like these are like exact science, and we can manage to tap into exact science and try to shape a congruent or authentic conception of them in that sense, it's not how it works. Yeah. So sometimes when it comes to authenticity, we basically take a pragmatic approach. Yeah. So we look into what works, considering the circumstances. Yeah. That's also extremely important. That is what many of these highest achievers that I've studied, they actually are extremely pragmatic people. So in a sense that they go, okay, so these are various different ways you can go about this thing. These are various different established perceptions available of a money, of a human right, of this thing and that thing, of team building, but then which one works the best? Which one is more effective? Now, some people don't like this, but the thing is, like, when it comes to execution of work, many highest achievers of the world, they actually take this approach, and there is not clear cut, uh, as we said, congruent conceptions of certain part of constructed reality. They basically look into the pragmatic approach. For example, democracy itself is, it can easily sit in in that realm, because see, there is this logical fallacy where it says, like, it is known as appeal to popularity. Yeah, meaning that whatever majority of people say is right, should be right. So we know that logically that's not relevant. There is no it's not like if everyone says, like, 90% of people are saying that this is right, then therefore it's right. Yeah. um but we acknowledge that as a pragmatic and practical way to go about things when it comes to politics and when it comes to running the modern societies. Yeah. So despite our acknowledgement and our awareness of the pitfalls that comes from democracy, but we know it to be a very perhaps the most practical way that so far we could have developed, that we can basically engage people, have citizens contributing through their votes, and basically make decisions. Yeah. Now, it doesn't make the decisions absolutely right or the best decisions, but these decisions would be the best that the majority would favor. And that's exactly why, at the end of the day, at its core, democracy relies on the sanity of the crowd. Now, the reason I'm bringing that thing up is sometimes around certain things, there's no clear cut, uh, exact, correct, validated conception that we can have from something. But then another way to go about it is, like, to take a more pragmatic approach, and that sits in the realm of authenticity. Yeah. So I hope that this conversation today in this episode made um, the way that we go about authenticity through our distinctions clearer. And as we mentioned, the intention in this series is not to go through all distinctions and discuss all these aspects of being. We're getting very close to the end of the module one. Um, and then I believe that basically we have created enough groundwork soon that then we can go to module two, where we start module two in the next either in one or two episodes. When we start the module two, we're going to shift the gear, and we're going to have more conversational discussions, less slides, and basically um, going through the daily challenges of leaders and leadership.
Well, it's been good to have this conversation around authenticity, and I hope that everyone that has joined us has gotten what we intended for you to get. This is part of a course for those that are viewing. I would encourage you to enroll in the course and join the rest of the modules of the last 8 episodes and get the fullness of what this course will deliver. It's been great to have everyone join us in episode 9 and hopefully continue to join us every week from here on out. We have about 40 more or so episodes to deliver as part of this course, and hopefully you will be with us throughout the whole time.
One thing that I forgot is there is this article I've wrote a long time ago. Is there more to authenticity than just to be yourself? We'll provide that link in the description on YouTube, and then for those of you who are accessing it through the course on the ingenesis.com platform, you can see it there as well. So if you want to do further study, that would be good way to go. I'd also encourage you, if you want to know more about it, there's way more. You can definitely refer to the Being book and the Human Being book, Authenticity Chapters.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see each other next week.
Thank you. Thank you very much.